And this is the first one. We will have a WIFTI Worldwide Webinar every month this coming year. Next time, we will be in Africa, and we will announce in the next WIFTI newsletter who will be the guest. But today, it's a big, big, big honor and joy for me to welcome the amazing actress Alice Braga.
Oh, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Such an honor to be here with you all. I'm really
excited. An honor to have you here. And it's also a big honor that one of the co-founders of WIFT Brazil, Maristela Bizarro, will be today's moderator. So enjoy this. And Maristela and Alice Braga will have a conversation for about 30 minutes. After these 30 minutes, you're all welcome to ask questions, and you can write the questions in the Q&A box. So please ask questions to Maristela and Alice Braga, because the last 30 minutes is for you to ask questions. So enjoy the conversation. I will do that. See you later.
Okay, so it's a huge pleasure to be moderating this session. First of all, I would like so much to thank Alice Braga for accepting this invitation. I also would like to thank WIFT International for this opportunity. I am Maristela Bizarro, co-founder of WIFT Brazil. We are an association that promotes women on cinema since 2013. We are part of WIFT International. Our special guest is Alice Braga, a Brazilian actress, producer, and movie director that has a large portfolio. She acted in 37 productions, considering movies and TV series. As an executive producer, she has 7 works, and she also directed a documentary. Alice, the thing I find especially interesting about you is the diversity of activities. And you also have time to join some causes. My first question to you is, what motivates you? And where do you find time and energy to do so many activities?
I love the question. Thank you so much, because I think I always have been so energized since I was a little kid that I love that question. I think it resonates to my personality a lot. I have a lot of energy. I'm always all the time like doing 3 things. I think I really love my craft. I mean, I really love acting and I really love movies. And I think after I started acting and growing up and meeting more people in the business, I started having the desire to produce and to be more involved everywhere, because I grew up on a movie set with my mom. My mom used to be an actress, Alicia Braga, and then she turned to be assistant director. So I grew up on a movie set with her. And my passion for acting kind of like started with the passion for films, with the passion for the behind the scenes, with the passion for the movie set. So it was interesting because one thing came kind of connected with the other. I started doing theater, but at the same time, I started almost immediately working on a movie set. So the desire to do everything and participate everything, it was kind of all together. So when I was doing a play, I wanted to help everything. I wanted to not only act, but I wanted to build the set and you know, help with the light and all that. And when I started working films, I think it was impossible to not combine this desire to also produce and to help develop and to help as much as I could on the script, or even help others, even if I'm not involved as an actress. But what I want more and more is to produce others, to make more work happen. So I think it all comes from this desire of being active.
Like a melting pot.
Yes.
No?
That's why my dad always told me, I'm glad you don't like caffeine.
Okay. So
I don't drink coffee.
I think we have good news here. I just want to confirm with you, because the New Mutants was scheduled so many times to be okay. People were waiting for the release, the movie, and now finally Fox announced that it's going to release. I read 2 days ago that Fox is going to release the movie on October 22nd. So first of all, what are you anxious? Are you, because I think you are waiting for this to. I think when you do an important work like this, and then you want to share with people. So the first question is, I imagine that you are anxious to to share this work with people, with the audience, isn't it?
Yes, I am. I mean, like we finally released in the US, and now it's finally going to release in Brazil, which for me is super important because in Brazil we have such a huge fan base for comics. Like our Comic-Con experience, which is this massive event, is like everyone from all over the world, when they go, they say the Brazilian fans are amazing. So for me as an actress, it was such an honor to join this Marvel X-Men world. And then to be finally able to release in Brazil, it's a big deal for me because I know the fan base for the X-Men, they're very loyal fans. So it's really exciting to finally, and it's interesting that once you work on a project, and we are from Brazil, Maristela, you know how long we take, to make a film, to be able to produce and all that. Funny enough, with a big film like studio film, that normally doesn't happen because everything is faster. And this film specifically was caught on the merge of Fox and Disney, so it took a longer time to release. So it's always exciting, I think, when you're finally giving to the audience, which is the main reason that we make, at least myself, that we throw ourselves into it. It's for the audience. It's for people to connect with the character, with the journey, with what it's the subject of what we're talking about.
And imagine how happy we are that we are having this opportunity, this interview 2 days before. Okay.
Yes.
I can say to my friends, she gave an interview to us, people, 2 days before, the release. We are really happy that finally we are going to see. And it's the movie, what I read about it, is a mixture of horror movie and hero movie. Can you tell us a little bit about this kind of mixture that a new proposal, isn't it?
Yeah, it was interesting because Josh Boone, the director, he loves comics, but he loves Stephen King. He loves this kind of genre of suspense, horror. So he wanted to put it together in one film, this superhero energy, but also with an indie suspense thriller vibe. And I think it really works because it's a new way of showing, superhero powerful movies, and to work with someone that knows so much about it because he grew up reading Stephen King. He is someone that knows all the beats, all the challenges of going for that horror thriller vibe. It's not easy always to just make a scary film or a suspenseful film. And he was someone that really knew how to do it. So it was very exciting. I like that. It was different than everything that I've done. The character that I did was very much involved into this darker part, and it was nice to tune that in, to discover, like, to find references related to that. Which I'm terrible with horror films. I cannot watch it. If I watch it, I have bad dreams for a week. I'm terrible. So I can make them, but I don't watch them much.
And you play a bad girl.
Yes, exactly.
That can be a new kind of challenge, I imagine, to compose this character, a bad girl, a doctor that is a kind of, you can explore different aspects of human behavior, I imagine.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's interesting. Yeah, because I feel like as an actor, at least myself, I tend to read the script and try, first of all, never to judge the character, even if it's the villain or not, is trying to understand and to create the spine of that character and the personality of the character, but without judging it, without like making assumptions and trying to stick yourself into it. I think it's interesting to pursue the character with the reasons that why the characters think that way. So therefore it's believable and it's truthful to who that human being would be. So it was a great challenge to do that because it's completely different than other characters that I've played before. And in a horror, in a thriller, you end up never giving away right away everything. So there's always the hidden parts. There's always the nuances. So it was a nice challenge. I really enjoyed it. It was fun.
And I imagine that you can talk about it, but I'm going to make the question anyway, because you have Marvel, but you have worked DC Comics too, because you have Suicide Squad too. This one I think is difficult because it's going to be released next year. Maybe you can't talk about it, but we know that you have amazing actors and actresses in this movie that you have worked with. So I was thinking, oh, she has two different kinds of opportunities, DC and Marvel. Okay, so it's interesting diversity.
Yeah, it was interesting because they're the fans for both worlds. They are very specific. I mean, like once you go into the DC Marvel world, each one of them has their own superhero, obsession or something like that. So being able to navigate into this both different worlds, but also kind of the same world because it's the comics world, was really exciting. I mean, James Gunn, which is the director for Suicide Squad 2, he's a really, really special director, filmmaker. He's a cinema lover. He's someone who loves comics. And I think to be a director of a film like this is always wonderful for the fans when it's someone who appreciates the comics, who appreciates the characters, who appreciates the journey that we love when we're reading the comics, because those are the fans that you're making the film for. And having the chance just to join, to have a participation in the film, to join forces with them was a huge honor, because it was like you said, such a huge amount of actors like Idris Elba, Viola Davis, Margot Robbie. It was just an honor just to be around them, because it's a group of people that also come from different schools, from different type of movies in different countries. I mean, like if you think, I love films that they cast such a variety of actors, because I think it only enhances the quality of the film, because you're bringing different perspectives, different cultures, different way of living and working and doing the craft. So it was a wonderful experience.
Okay, so I would ask you. I would like to ask you about the dystopias that you have played. So I think that maybe many people have asked you about this, but it's interesting to think that you had a kind of experience in playing some dystopias, and we are in a period that we say, "Oh, has the future come?" In some
My
sense,
God, yeah.
And we think that it's an obscure future, but in some sense, it's not. It's impossible to watch, for example, I Am Legend, Elysium, and not thinking about nowadays
what is happening. Yeah.
What is happening? So, how do you see the entertainment industry facing COVID? How has it dealt with this pandemic? How do you see this, especially the American industry?
It's so interesting, when you mention I Am Legend, because I Am Legend starts with Emma Thompson saying that everything went wrong because they rushed to get a vaccine. And when I saw the Russian vaccine coming out, I'm like, oh my God, this is I Am Legend. Like, it's so crazy how much we talked about the apocalypse, and we talk about like the dystopia. And we're living the dystopia without acknowledging it in a way. I think like with the climate emergency and all of it, we are really having to put attention to the environment. But I think it's devastating to think for the industry, not only in the US, but in Brazil, how much is hard for us, because we work with the body, we work with having people, we work with emotions, we work with storytelling, and it's very hard for our industry to be able to work. I haven't, for example, I do a TV show and we stopped when coronavirus happened. We're going to pick it up. I'm traveling this week and we're going to start back shooting next week. But it's so hard how many people like lost their jobs and like to be able to go back to work. It's really heartbreaking. I mean, I think there are shows that the small scale of it sometimes won't even come back. And that, I think it's something that we need to pay attention on, how much we build support for the industry, for the communities, and for us to keep on going with the work, because it's really expensive to work with the precautions for coronavirus. And it breaks my heart, just the idea of thinking that we're going to lose amazing stories because of investments. So we cannot just live off with the big films, or the big industry surviving, and not acknowledging the independent and the small scale filmmakers and storytellers. And I think we need to find a way as a community, either in the independent community in the US and in Brazil, as a force to support each other. So therefore we can support the industry and the workers mainly. I think, like, I've been trying to support a lot the work, the institutions that help the technicians, first of all, and the actors also there would be there. But also we have another problem, which that is the one that I'm that really worries me, which is the movie theaters. I'm really concerned about the movie theaters closing and what is the future of cinema, in a way, the experience of going to the cinema. I think it's wonderful that we have streaming, and it's so interesting to think how much in our country culture is being so attacked, by the president that we have now, but how much it's what kept us strong to keep on going, because that's what it was, a book that we were reading, it was a film that we were watching, or it was a TV show that was making us be at home and trying to find escape from the anguish that we were living. So I think it's very important to look deep inside and think that these dystopias that we always talked in the film, it is happening. I think, like, the life that we've been living for the past couple of years, it was not normal, the desiguality and the environmental problems. I think it's really important for us to, as a community, and especially as a filmmaker community and artistic community, to look at ourselves and find ways that we can support each other and be a force together to keep on going, because it's very everyone is relying on films and TVs to feel warm during the pandemic, but we're the industry that is suffering without much support. And I think we need to unite to fight against that and to be strong.
It's so sad when we see, last week, for example, we read that some theaters in Brazil were closing, like Ruth Escobar is closing. I was so sad when I read this.
Me too. And that's why I'm saying yes. It's history, just
history. And worse than closing is the idea of becoming an evangelical church. Can you believe it? It's so sad. And
it's really heartbreaking, yeah.
Because we have a problem considering the production, but we have a problem considering how people get access to these spaces, that a place that you can go there to watch a movie, to see a play, to watch a play. So it's a problem. And considering I Am Legend, considering this theme, dystopia, through this movie, I Am Legend, you came to international prominence. I would like you to tell a little bit about this experience of being a cast of a truly Hollywood movie. I mean, a big production, a narrative of a post-apocalyptic Manhattan where all human beings have been killed by a virus or transformed into zombie-like killers. How was this experience for you?
It was amazing, because I came from independent film. I come from, a filmmaker family, and it was very, very amazing to be able to see from the inside a world that I was always admiring from the outside. Meaning, I always grew up watching films, and all kind of films, because my dad, he loves films, and my mom as well. So I always had moved the movie world very, very close to my heart. So being able to be in it with zombies, it was like, this is crazy. Because we don't make this kind of films in Brazil. So it was kind of like felt like Disneyland in a way, kind of like looking from the inside. And it was an amazing experience because of that, because you see how much the movie, the filmmaking is one language all over the world. I mean, of course, you have the sizes of it. You have if in the US, there's a huge industry. There is this massive support, and of course, like you have a gigantic film, you have also independent films, but it was really interesting to jump into that movie set and say, this is beautiful because we're the same. The way that the relationship between actors and director and screenwriter and gaffer, it's the same way that it is in Brazil or in Mexico, like I filmed before. So that for me was very fulfilling, that, you know, we have one language, which is storytelling, and it's filmmaking. And it was inspiring to see what I could help bringing back to Brazil into production or with connections. And that for me was something that I felt very blessed to be able to work abroad, but also to come back to my country and keep helping producing and making it, you know, as an industry. But it was a wonderful experience. I think I learned a lot from it.
And an interesting fact about if we consider the narrative is that you played, we had a female character that saves the hero. I confess that as a feminist, I was so happy to see a woman saving the main character. I just thought, oh, she saved it with me. So this idea, if we think that some years ago, female characters saving that scene when you save the hero, I think it represents a change in narratives, the way gender can be put at the table, you know?
Absolutely, yes. This? It's interesting because we were talking about New Mutants, for example, and New Mutants, it talks about these 5 kids, and 3 of them are girls. And the actual badass in the films are the girls. Like, they're really, really amazing. And when I read the script, I was like, it's so exciting for young kids to see that, to be able to connect with it in that sense, to see powerful female characters being the hero and not being just in a passive side or just being the antagonist in that sense, but being the one that ends up saving the day. And I feel that this is changing more and more. I think like it's something that it's been a struggle, and I think it's still a struggle. I think there's still like discussions and representation for it. But the more and more you see films coming out with that point of view, with the point of view of the woman, with the point of view of, and not making just a cause as being a woman, simply she's the hero. And I think that's when you see the change, when it's not, oh, she's a hero because she's a woman, because. No, simply she is, you know, the lead of the story.
You mean a well-composed character?
Yeah, exactly. Then therefore it is the hero, and I think that's what it's beautiful. And I mean, in reality, we're seeing now, right? The countries that dealt best with coronavirus were led by women.
It's true. It's true.
So okay. Fiction is true. Reality showing fiction, and therefore.
Okay, and talking about women, I need to ask you, because if I don't ask, people are going to be really angry with me if I don't ask you about King of Salt. I have other questions here, because I have questions for you about City of God. I have about the Lower City, that we have Karina, that it's such an amazing character. But I'm going to ask you about Queen of Salt, because it's a really, really important work. And just to think that a few years ago, it was unlikely that a television station would buy an idea of telling the story of a woman in the world of drug trafficking. Mm-hmm. And a few years ago, I think it would be even less likely to buy the idea of the story, telling the story of an anti-hero. So this show, that is based on a popular telenovela, La Reina del Sur, which was exhibited by Telemundo, is an adaptation of the novel, a Spanish novel by the same name. The author is Arturo Pérez Reverte. Yes. And it's based on the life of a drug trafficking dealer, Marlon Chacon. So I would like you to talk a little bit about Teresa. The people love Teresa, and tell us a little bit about this show. That is a really, really amazing one.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because you're asking about female characters, and it's really interesting to think how Teresa fits that environment, which is she's the lead of the show and she's playing like the role that her journey is to become, which is becoming this big boss into the cartel world. Normally in history we saw men doing that, being characters played by men, and also because in reality like a bunch of them are men. But it was interesting to find that challenge and understand how she's the hero of her own life, and how her journey was a lot about her own empowerment and her solitude, but her empowering herself through that. So it was a neat, I never done TV before, and it was interesting to start doing television. And I never thought like that it would, I would be on my 5th year doing the same character. It's such an interesting thing as an actress when you work on a show, because the character keeps alive. You are still connected with the character, even though like you finish that season, you put it on the side, you do other work, but you revisit that character a year later, and that character is alive with you. And as you change as an actress, as a human being, you're still with that character. So you're evolving that character in a way with your life, because we change every day with the reality, with people that we know, with people that we get inspired to. So it was interesting to create, that character in my career and in my life as a woman, as understanding how this business works, and also creating how this woman would be empowered and would survive in such a harsh, conflictual world, which is the cartel world. So I tried a lot to base myself in the book. The show ended up being very different from what Arturo Perez Reverte wrote in the book, but I always tried to honor and to stick with this spine, with the personality that he wrote in the book, because of that, because I thought it was such a powerful female role of someone who doesn't victimize herself and never let her losses and her pain put her down. And I always wanted to keep that alive. And I thought it was an interesting anti-hero, but hero of her own life journey to play. So it's been interesting. It's 5 years. It's my 5th year doing it. I never thought I would be with the character for 5 years.
And it's interesting because you have 2 other female characters that are really interesting too. You have Camila and Brenda too. So it's a show that has
very female driven. Absolutely, definitely, and that's what it's great. And it's funny because Justina Machado, the actress that played Brenda, she went off to do another show, a wonderful show called One Day at a Time on Netflix. Then it moved out of Netflix. Now it's on CBS. But it's also a female-driven character. And I think there is more opportunity for female characters to be played now, but women that are strong and not like in a position of victimization or with a perspective of a man writing, but women writing for women. And I think that's really important, to have that representation in front of camera, but behind the camera. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they are not waiting what is going to happen. They do. And it has a lot of action. Okay.
Exactly.
So I think now I have more questions, but I think now it's time to open for the questions from the audience. I'm going to see how it works here. Let's see.
I'll just come in here, Maristela.
Okay, Regina.
Audience questions. I hope that's okay. Thank you so much, Alice, already for sharing so generously. We have a question from Jenny from Mexico. And she asks, which of all the characters you've played have you loved the most?
Good.
It's almost like asking what kid you love the most. Which one of your kids you love the most? I'm not a mom yet, but I know that's a hard one. No, I'm kidding. Hi, Jenny. Thank you for your question. I think it's so funny because each character brings something to your life, and it's a new challenge. So I fell in love with every character that I get. Every time I get it, I fall in love with them. That's why I was saying it's so interesting to play Teresa for 5 years, because I keep falling in love with her. I keep that. It's almost like a marriage that I keep, like I have to work on it to bring new things and to evolve. But I think there's one character that really changed my life, and it was really, really challenging and really fulfilling. And I think like groundbreaking for me, it was Karina from Lower City, which is, it's a film that I have a deep, deep love for Sergio Machado, the director, and gratitude, you know, for the work that I did with him, with Fatima Toledo, who worked with me, who was our coach. It was such a wonderful experience as an actress, to find that girl, to understand her, the world that she lived in, and why she was a prostitute, and why she loved so much those two men that she was involved in, their love triangle. It was a very, I think that character is not that I love the others less. It's just, I think that one specifically, my mind was, I think it was, as an actress, it taught me so much about acting and about a connection with the character, that I took that experience to everything else afterwards. So I think that's why.
Okay,
It's a
Regina,
hard
just
question.
let me
Thank
ask
you.
her. I need to make this question. Just one question. And at that moment, we had two best actors of the moment, both from Bahia, Wagner Moura and Lázaro Ramos. They had a friendship. They worked together. So I'm going to tell you something that I read from Rubens Evald Filho. She said something really amazing. He said that it would be very risky for any actress to get in the middle of them, even to a young woman. So I think that he could realize, he could think that it was challenging to be part of that. And you did it very well. You were at the beginning of career because you had done City of God. So how did you compose Karina? Because in fact, when we think about prostitutes, you go deeper in the female condition.
It's so interesting.
How to deal with this?
With their friendship?
Two things. He thought that could be risky because you were at the beginning of the career and you enter in that group to be part of that group. Not that they wouldn't accept you, but the challenge.
Absolutely.
Aspect.
Yeah, and especially like you said, like they're so powerful actors. I mean, I at the time that I started working with them, they were doing a play that it was one of the most beautiful plays I've ever seen in Brazil. It's called La Máquina. And Wagner Moura, for whoever is watching, and he played on Narcos. He was Pablo Escobar on Narcos from Netflix, and he's a phenomenal actor, and he's been doing amazing work. He's actually a dear friend of mine. And on Lower City, he was acting with him and Lázaro. For me, was also taught me so much about acting. I was so inspired by their vision of what acting is and how you should pursue acting and pursue a character, and that was very inspiring. And because they were actors so amazing from theater, and they had that relationship, I kind of, in a way, with the work with Fatima Toledo, which is a wonderful acting coach from Brazil, but I really tried to get into it in the middle of them and play with that energy of them being friends, because it was a love triangle. So the three of us, we really stayed connected and very good friends. But I was feeding myself into their creativity and their passion for each other as friends, as actors, as a group, because they were from a theater group together. So I tried kind of like to fit in and learn from that. But also, it's funny because in the film you see the strength. It comes from Karina. It comes from the point of view of the woman, and I think I kind of like tried to find that. It was challenging because I was a huge fan of their work before I jumped the film. So
good. I think we have more questions from Regina.
Yeah, definitely. We have one question from Helena from Denmark, and she's very inspired by your work and thanking you for sharing. And
thank you.
Helena says you have a history of playing very strong and strong-minded women. Do you find yourself drawn to this type of character, or is it typically that you're that you're offered these kind of roles? So are you drawn to them?
Hi, Helena. Thank you very much for your question, Helena. It's so funny because I hear that a lot. Like I normally end up playing like strong women, and from the outside, I think it's so interesting, like us, when human beings, we look at ourselves, we never see what sometimes people see. And I never think I'm like the strong one of the team or the family, and I'm not like the one that is driven. But I ended up playing characters like this. I don't know if I bring that sometime to the read, and that's something that I can add up to the story, and the directors end up like writing or extracting that from me. Maybe I have that energy. It's funny because once I heard an acting casting director saying that, like, oh no, Alicia, she's not, I don't think she's right for that part. She's too strong for the part. And I was like, really? I'm just strong for the part. I don't see myself as that strong. I could understand later what she was saying. I think I'm very present in a way, but I think it's a challenge for me as an actress to deconstruct that. So in a way, I'm in search of that different type of character. Maybe I think people or directors or writers, they see myself into that way. And I try, for example, with Queen of the South, I tried a lot to find the fragility between the cracks of the character, at least, because she needs to be strong all the time, because life is punching her all the time with problems, with life threats, with the reality of her world and her life. But in between the cracks, I try to bring that humanity that all of us have, which is the fragility, which is the pain, which is the weakness that all of us have, and that should be shown. But I think maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe it's something that I end up with my point of view of the character or my energy for the character. It might add up to the story. It's a good question. Thank you. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to start filming Queen of the South again. I'm going to bring that question with me.
That's fantastic. Thank you. We have another question from the Philippines, from Wailin. And she's asking, what is your dream role or dream project?
Ooh, that's an amazing question. Hi, Philippines. It's my dream to go to the Philippines. Thank you for your question. It's so interesting because there's so many, like I said, like there's so many different characters that I haven't played. There's one specifically that lately I've been thinking a lot, but I think Carmen Miranda has a story in the end of her life that it should be told. I think she was a Latina in a time Hollywood wasn't acknowledging that, and I think she was such a strong woman, human being, a powerful person that ended up her days in a hard moment. And I think it would be beautiful to play her and to tell that story. I think that's definitely one thing. And another one, sorry, I'm an actress. Yeah, I have so many dreams. I think right now, someone that speaks about the environment. I think I would love to play someone that is fighting for the environment, to bring awareness to it. I think it would be a wonderful character to play now, to tell the story of these people that are fighting with their own bodies and soul for a better future for everyone. And I think to portray that, it would be also an honor. I chose two, sorry.
I would like to ask you something. Do you think that now the American cinema is more open to bring Latin characters, to think about Latin narratives? How do you see this?
I think it is. I think it's a constant battle and fight, and I think representation does matter. I think the Latin community in the US is gigantic, but I think what we do also, it's not only for the US, it's for the world. That's why international productions, it's being made. Netflix is doing a lot of shows in Spain, is doing a lot of shows in Brazil, is doing a lot of shows in Mexico. I think we should think art. It's so interesting, for example, to watch a show like Dark from Germany, like or you watch La Casa de Papel from Spain, or you watch 3% from Brazil. Like there's so many amazing stories to be told that we connect as human beings. So the language shouldn't be a barrier. And I think in the US specifically, I'm glad that they're more open. I think it's a constant battle, but I think there are more roles. But the change cannot be and should not be only in front of the camera. I think we need representation also behind the camera, not only having actors, you know, being cast for specific roles in a film, but also behind the camera, having executives, having directors, having writers, because that's when the change happened. That's why also female executives, female writers and showrunners and all that. I think that's when you really make the change into an industry. It's from the inside out. But I definitely think it's a better moment, and it's a constant, you know, representation battle.
Okay. I think Regina has more questions.
Yes, definitely. We will try to answer. We've got quite a lot. We'll try to answer as many as we can, but we might not manage.
And I talk so much, guys.
All of them.
I'm so sorry.
I think it's wonderful. We have one question from Gabriela, and she asks, having an international career, how different is it for you in Brazil and in the US in terms of opportunities, recognition, and so on? And if you have any word of advice for a Brazilian actress who wants a career not only in Brazil, but also in other countries, for example, in the United States?
I think it's a challenge because you end up like working in both places, and at the same time, sometimes you look at yourself and think like, where do I belong in a way? And I had to learn through the process of working in both countries and keeping my relationship in both countries is what fulfills me. So that's why I live half of the year in Brazil, half of the year in the US. Where the work is where my heart's gonna be. That's kind of like how I try to keep that alive in my heart, because I come from Brazilian cinema, Brazilian independent films, and that's where I come from, and that's where I belong. I work abroad and I learn a lot abroad, but I want to also bring it back home and still work with people that I admire in Brazil. We have an amazing cinema in Brazil. We have amazing filmmakers, amazing creators that there's so much to explore that I want to keep that alive. It's just hard because sometimes people just assume that I'm not available, and that's the only thing that breaks my heart, because sometimes I'm like, I wish I've done that. Yeah, you were on the reference board, but we thought you wouldn't be able to do it. And I'm like, what? You didn't even call me? I should have called me. I would totally do it. That's the only issue of being away. But I think my biggest advice would be follow your dreams and keep on working and do films, like audition, study, try to find who is making films or TV and all that. Therefore, to create a portfolio to then work abroad or move and do a course and try to achieve their dreams. I think more than anything, it's important to keep on studying and making the connections and inspiring yourself, surrounding yourself with people that inspire you and pushes you forward. Because I think that way you end up getting, you know, the connections and the maybe that audition that can change your life. I think for me, it's one of the reasons that I had a production company called Los Bragas, and I left them, and I'm opening a new one exactly because of that, because I want to produce different people and I want to connect with different people to create projects that connect ourselves to Latin America, also to our neighboring countries, and also to find new talent, to develop that connection between Brazil and wherever in the world, being Mexico, being the US. That's my biggest desire, I think, like being in both countries, is to at least be a rope that I can connect people from one to the other. Being an actress in the project or not, my biggest dream is just to fill the industry with more creativity and connections as possible. I talk a lot, sorry.
Can I ask you one more question? Can I ask you one more?
Yeah, go ahead. Of course, go ahead.
Okay, I would like to ask Alice, because she is the protagonist, but at the same time, in Queen of Salt, she is the producer. Did you feel any kind of prejudice, or do you think that could be more difficult to act as a producer, being a woman? How do you see this? When you get a project and you go to the investors and show your project, have you dealt with this kind of thing as being a woman? Did you feel any occasion that it could be more difficult? How do you see this as being a female producer?
It's really interesting because I started Queen of the South only as an actress, and then last season or 2 seasons ago, I don't remember, I became an executive producer. But I've always been, since day one, I've always been really involved with the script. I was always, because I loved the book. It was very interesting because the story came to me, but I already had read the book, and already a friend of mine told me about it like years before that. So for me, I was very passionate about Teresa. I was very passionate about the character, and I became the advocate for the character right away. Even if they decided to change the book, I was like, great, but that's the character that I most love. And I was always very involved with them in the studio, and the writers, they've been amazing with me. They've been very inclusive, and I learned with that experience. And because I was so involved, I think they added me as an executive producer because of that, because I was really hands-on into advocating for the character and the journey, because it is her journey from being a girl that he was a girlfriend to the drug dealer to becoming the lead of the cartel. So there is an arc that is very her own point of view and journey. And I felt actually, in a way, very blessed that it was maybe a time in Hollywood, or maybe a time that we're living now in the world, that as a woman, I felt very respected and very included in the talks, especially because the character is this girl and is a woman. And I think it was very empowering in that sense, that they were really inclusive and really excited in a way to have that point of view. And I think that's why I love women that come kicking the door, because sometimes that's how we need to do it. We need to kick the door. You're not going to open? Great, I'm going to kick the door. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to have a seat at the table. It's hard, but sometimes we need to do it. That's why I think it's important, because representation do matter. And it's not only in front of the camera, but it's behind the camera as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have one question from Susan from Ireland. She asks, do you think there are more opportunities for women to tell their own stories in 2020?
I think so. I hope so. I deeply hope so. I think so. I think it's we have, at least the scripts that I've been reading lately, there's a lot of scripts that are driven by women. I feel that more shows and more movies are coming out with female leads. Yes, I think so. I think it's still a battle, but for example, I love that, Charlize Theron did a whole Netflix film that she's a complete badass woman, superhero that doesn't die, and she's a woman, and it was directed by a woman. And even if it's it's a more popular commercial film during the quarantine and all that, people could see that it was directed by a woman, it was produced by Charlize Theron, and it was acted by her, and she was the lead. And I think that is a huge inspiration for where we're going and should be going.
Fantastic, thank you. We have one other question, slight shift of topic, from Luna. And she says that she admires what you do for the environment. The Greenpeace project about the food was great, she says.
Thank you.
And also, she says, I just feel so helpless in the matter. So many countries are ruled by people who are neither good nor wise, and their decisions change the world for worse. Do you think it is possible for common people to do something that would really help?
Yes, absolutely. I deeply believe all of us can do something and should do something. It's so funny because the book that I've been reading lately, it's called We Are the Weather saving the planet begins at breakfast. And it's Jonathan Save from 4. It's right in front of me right now, actually. And I really believe it's all of us. By the way, thank you for seeing the Greenpeace video. It means the world, you know, hearing someone from all over from the other side of the road to be talking about this video, because I made it with the desire to bring conscience to people that each action that we do matters. I think sometimes we think, oh, but if I do it, what's going to change the world? If I do it, nothing is going to change. And I think all of us should do things especially if we think we cannot do it. I think that's the complete reason for all of us to start acting it, because there's something wrong if our own action is not making a change. And we should feel that the change starts on the food that we eat and where it comes from, and what's the companies that are involved with it, and what are they doing to the environment, and how we vote, to whom we vote, and what are they doing for the climate. And those questions as citizens, I think we need to ask ourselves and stay on top of it, because the clock is ticking, and it is possible for us to make a change, but we need to act fast. So I deeply encourage people to make their own change, not based on what the bigger picture is, because I deeply believe if we change our house, our street, our neighbor, our city, and therefore the country, I think it's a step.
Just let me ask you something, because we are going to the end of our interview, a really good one. But I need to ask you this about Eduardo and Monica, because the movie is ready to be released, and it couldn't be released due to COVID. But how was the experience of playing Monica? Because it's a character that is in our imaginary, especially for Brazilian people that love the song by Legião Urbana. And the first question is, how was your reaction when you received the invitation to play Monica? How did you feel?
It was amazing, because I mean, for whoever is watching, you know, this interview, Eduardo de Monica is a very famous song in Brazil by an amazing poet, and it's a song that all of us heard in a way, loving or not, Legião Urbana, which is this music, this band. All of us heard at some point. So it is a reference for us as Brazilian. And when she invited me, the first thing was like, oh my God, yes, I want to do it. And then I was like, wait a minute. It's like, I'm going to be playing with everybody's imaginary, you know, idea of who is Monica. But I absolutely loved it. It was a project that for me, I think Renato Russo, which is the poet, the composer, is an artist that I always admired as a human being, as an artist, as a poet. And the idea of creating a character for him, to represent him, was what drove me to say, yes, I want to do it more than anything. His friends, he passed away already, but his friends say that he wrote that song because he was a little bit Eduardo and he was a little bit of Monica. The song talks about this couple that meet and fall in love, but they have different ages and different lives and personalities, and the music kind of like tells that. And for me, it was really interesting to portray Monica a little bit as if she was him. And I think that was a beautiful challenge, even though I'm really like with butterflies all over to release the film and see what the audience is going to say, because everybody has a Monica in their mind. Like, to be able to go back to Brazil and do that film, it had a special meaning for me because of that, because it was a challenge and also a dream come true, because it's a film I think that I hope it's going to bring some joy to the Brazilians in such a harsh moment that we're living right now. I hope it brings some inspiration and a love message of accepting the difference. We need to accept that we're different, and we need to get inspired by that.
Okay, thank you. I think Regina has more questions from the audience.
Yeah, we maybe have time for one or two more. And we have one from Debra, and she asks, with the current political climate, how do you think we as participants of the film and TV industry can bring more appreciation, more awareness, and life stories about our Latin community to the table?
You mean in the world or in the US?
I think
Probably
generally
in the world, right?
film, yeah, probably
In the
world,
film,
in the film and TV industry.
In the film and TV industry, I think we need to tell stories that inspire people. Being, I think Latinos. I played a Latina that represents a stereotype of Latinos on TV, and I know that we need to start changing characters for Latinos and for representation. That is not only the drug dealer or the maid, but they have their own story, their normal life story, and not just a specific way of portraying Latinos. That for sure. But I feel that we should. I deeply believe, and I call myself an activist just because I believe that we can make change and we can act for change. That's why I believe each one of us can bring change to the world in the small details or on the bigger scale. And I think as filmmakers and all that, we can do content to inspire people, to move people, to create a seed in people. Not that everything that we do needs to be political and needs to create a change, but through emotions, through ideas, through journeys, we can make people feel things. And I think that's what it's important now more than anything, to support our filmmaking community, to make sure that we are keeping it alive so it doesn't die with the movie theaters, but also to create content that promote change. I participated on the film Soul for Pixar, and it's going to come out in the Christmas Eve on Christmas Day, the 25th, December 25th. And the journey of the character is beautiful. I really hope people get inspired by it. Things like that, it brings change. If you really think, us as creators to inspire people, that what I deeply believe filmmakers can do on a play, or artists on a play or on a piece of art. So that's what I hope the most, that we keep strong. It's a hard time, and I really hope that we can go through it and keep creating content to inspire people.
Wow, that is
That's
wonderful.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Shall we take one more question, and then Helene will come back and I think wrap up for the
Yes, definitely.
Fantastic. Yes, we have, and I think you briefly touched on that before when you said like sometimes we just need to run in the door to get our ideas shown. But Lavinia from Berlin, she asked if you have any advice or how would you deal with people who try to sort of discourage you and belittle you and your ideas? Do you have anything, to do about that or to oppose that?
I think it's always good, in my opinion, I think it's always good, like if someone is not pushing you forward and is not supporting you, it's always good to understand why, to understand that point of view, but also should not let that stop you, to understand whatever is coming from. In my opinion, I mean, like sometimes I really worry myself a lot of what others are going to think, and I think that's normal. I think especially for an actor, you're always like exposing yourself, so I'm always like, maybe this is not going to work, or maybe this, or maybe that. But I deeply believe that if we know the story that we want to tell, and if we know that you really want to tell that story, and that really connects with something that you deeply believe, you have to tell that story. You have to push that out of your heart. Even if someone is disencouraging you, ignore them, because that has a meaning to you, and therefore that might meet another heart that has a meaning to it too, and that will connect with it. So I'm a big believer of do not give up, just keep kicking doors, and worst case scenario is just going to be like, okay, thank you, nice to meet you, bye. Maybe for another project it's going to be a good thing, but I love encouraging people to just keep on going. And even if people are not supporting you, try to understand why and grow from that experience. But I think my biggest advice would be, if it has a deep full meaning inside your heart, don't give up, because that's when we lose amazing stories from artists that unfortunately people didn't push them forward. And I know how hard our industry and our business can be. So I think I really believe that, to inspire and support people the more we can.
Wow.
Thank you very, 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 very much, Alice.
Oh, thank
Fantastic.
you.
And on behalf of all the attendees that has been listening, from our heart, it was amazing to listen to you. And extra thank you for encouraging us all not to give up. I think we all need it, and we need to say it to each other. It was so nice to hear it from you. So thank you very much. And thank you, Maristela Bizarro, for moderating this and for set it up. And thank you, WIFT Brazil, our sisters on that continent. We love you, and we are so happy to be with you in. And I think it was fantastic to see that we have people from all over the globe listen to
it was
you.
amazing. It was beautiful. Thank you very much for everyone that joined. It's such a wonderful experience that the movie and the films and this industry connect us all to be storytellers. So thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor. I mean it. I was so excited. I want to be close to you guys the most that I can. Count on me on everything.
We are so happy to hear that. And for those of you who was listening today, I also would like to announce, I did it in the beginning, that next month we will have a WIFTI Worldwide Webinar from Africa. And in the next WIFTI newsletter that will come in about 10 days, we will announce who the guest will be. It's still a secret. So please join us again. And this is also recorded. So if you want to recommend it to one of your friends, it will be on the WIFTI website, so they can listen to this fantastic conversation. So once again, thank you and good night and good morning.
I'm going to thank you, everybody. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Regina. Thank you so much, Alice, to have accepted our invitation. I think we had many issues to think about, and I really like to think that especially young women and young actors, young movie directors that are going to be inspired by this conversation. So thank you, everybody. It was such an amazing time. And WIFT Brazil is so happy to have this opportunity to share and to talk about your experience, about your projects. We wish you all the best luck in your new projects, and we are anxious to watch the Eduardo and Monica and other works that you have done, and the ones that you are going to the new ones. Okay, we wish you all the best luck.
Oh, thank you very much. Obrigada.
Valeu.
Ciao.